Revisiting the streets of San Francisco, 1972, today feels less like watching a traditional police procedural and more like opening a time capsule that still breathes, still hums with the friction between duty and humanity. And what strikes me most upon reflection is how the series transforms the idea of a city into an emotional landscape where every case reverberates long after it is solved. If it is solved at all, because the show's true subject is not crime but endurance, not resolution but the ongoing process of living with what cannot be neatly resolved. From the very first moments of an episode, there is a deliberate sense of immersion in place. The city's steep streets, the fog drifting across the bay, the way sunlight hits concrete in the late afternoon, all of it combining to create a setting that feels not just realistic, but psychologically resonant. And it is within this textured environment that the detectives operate, navigating not only criminal investigations, but also the emotional consequences of their work. I remember being struck by how often the series allows its characters to simply exist within the city rather than constantly act upon it, as though the narrative understands that observation is itself a form of action, that noticing the small details of a place and its people can be as important as chasing a suspect or closing a case. One scene that remains vivid in my mind involves a quiet walk through a residential neighborhood after a tense confrontation, the camera following at a respectful distance, allowing the characters to decompress without forcing them into immediate dialogue. And in that silence, we feel the weight of what they have witnessed, the understanding that even when a situation ends, its emotional residue persists. This is where the series distinguishes itself from many of its contemporaries and successors, because it refuses to treat each episode as a self-contained narrative that resets at the end. Instead, there is a sense that experiences accumulate, shaping the detectives' perspectives and subtly altering their interactions with one another and with the city. The partnership at the center of the show evolves not through grand gestures or dramatic speeches, but through shared routines, repeated encounters, and the gradual development of trust. And it is this slow, steady progression that gives the relationship its authenticity. I often find myself reflecting on a scene where the younger detective questions whether their work truly makes a difference, and the older detective responds not with a reassuring platitude, but with a pragmatic acknowledgement that progress is often incremental and sometimes invisible, a response that feels honest rather than comforting, and that honesty becomes one of the show's defining qualities. The series seems to suggest that resilience is not about maintaining unwavering optimism, but about continuing to engage with a world that is frequently difficult and ambiguous, and this perspective lends a quiet dignity to the characters' efforts, making their persistence feel meaningful even when outcomes are imperfect. The pacing of the show reinforces this thematic focus, as episodes unfold with a measured rhythm that allows tension to build organically, and the camera often lingers on faces and environments long enough to capture subtle shifts in mood and perspective, creating a sense of continuity between moments that might otherwise feel disconnected. I recall an episode in which the detectives revisit a location from an earlier case, not because they expect to find new evidence, but because something about the place continues to trouble them, and that return visit becomes an opportunity for reflection rather than action, illustrating how the past remains present in their work and in their lives. This willingness to explore the lingering effects of experience gives the series a depth that extends beyond its genre, transforming it into a meditation on responsibility, memory, and the passage of time. Watching it now, I am struck by how relevant its themes remain, particularly in a cultural moment that often prioritizes speed and spectacle over patience and nuance, and the show's commitment to deliberate storytelling feels almost radical in its restraint. The city itself functions as both a stage and a character, its shifting atmosphere mirroring the emotional states of those who move through it, and the use of location shooting lends an authenticity that cannot be replicated on a soundstage, grounding the narrative in a tangible reality that enhances its emotional impact. One of the most compelling aspects of the series is its attention to the human cost of law enforcement, not in a sensationalized way, but through small, intimate interactions that reveal how the job affects the detective's sense of self and their relationships with others. There is a scene that comes to mind in which they visit a witness who is reluctant to cooperate, and rather than applying immediate pressure, they take the time to listen, to understand the witness's fears and concerns, And this approach underscores the show's emphasis on empathy as a necessary component of effective policing. It is in these moments of connection, however brief, that the series finds its emotional center, reminding us that every case involves individuals with their own stories, their own struggles, and their own reasons for acting as they do. The performances anchor this approach, with both leads bringing a sense of lived experience to their roles, and their chemistry conveys a partnership built on mutual respect and shared understanding rather than dramatic conflict. As the episodes progress, we see how their interactions become more nuanced, how small gestures of support and acknowledgement accumulate, creating a bond that feels genuine and earned. I am particularly drawn to the way the show uses silence as a narrative tool, allowing pauses and quiet moments to convey meaning without relying on exposition, and in those silences we see the characters processing what they have encountered, finding ways to continue despite the emotional toll. One image that has stayed with me is of the detectives standing on a hillside overlooking the city at dusk, the skyline fading into shadow as they prepare to move on to whatever comes next, and that image encapsulates the series' central message, that the work is ongoing, that there is always another challenge on the horizon, and that resilience lies in the willingness to keep going. Comparing the show to more modern crime dramas, I am struck by its refusal to prioritize spectacle over substance, choosing instead to focus on the everyday realities of the job and the people who perform it, and this choice gives the series a timeless quality that allows it to resonate across decades. It reminds us that strength is often quiet, that perseverance is built from countless small decisions rather than a single heroic act, and that the true measure of endurance lies in the ability to remain present and engaged even when the outcome is uncertain. As I reflect on my own experiences watching the series over time, I realize that its impact has grown rather than diminished, perhaps because its themes of persistence and integrity feel increasingly relevant in a world that often moves too quickly to fully process the consequences of its actions. The Streets of San Francisco offers a different kind of narrative satisfaction, one that comes not from dramatic resolutions but from the steady accumulation of moments that reveal character, environment, and the complex interplay between them, and in doing so it creates a portrait of endurance that is both specific to its setting and universal in its implications. The city becomes a repository of stories, each echoing into the next, and the detectives become custodians of those echoes, carrying them forward as they continue their work, and it is this sense of continuity, this acknowledgement that every action leaves a trace, that gives the series its enduring power. In the end, what lingers most is not any single case or dramatic twist, but the atmosphere of quiet determination that permeates the show, the understanding that to endure is to remain attentive, to remain compassionate, to remain committed even when certainty is elusive, and in that sense the series stands as a testament to the value of persistence, a reminder that the most meaningful victories are often the ones that occur not in the spotlight but in the steady, ongoing effort to do what is right in a world that rarely offers easy answers.